Welcome to the first video in our addiction education series presented by the Cardinal Crew Foundation. Today we're just going to broach the topic of the physiology of addiction and the brain. Now, before we get started, let me just say, the brain is incredibly complex and there is a lot of nuances that go on in the brain. We are going to stay very surface level just to learn what we need to know about neurotransmitters, the physiology, and addiction. Let's get started. First and foremost, all of the nerve conductions that happen in the brain happen through neurons, which are the cells of the brain, and they release chemicals called neurotransmitters, which are responsible for the communication that goes on throughout the brain. The functions of these neurotransmitters are very specific to each of the neurotransmitters. Some of those neurotransmitters are GABA, glutamate, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine. Now, some of the specific neurotransmitters that we're going to talk about are related to alcohol and addiction. Number one being gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA. This is the major inhibitory neurotransmitter in the body. It stops action potentials from conducting, so we slow the system down. Whereas glutamate, on the other hand, is excitatory. It wants to conduct and send those signals so things keep firing away. And then dopamine is another popular neurotransmitter you may have heard of before. This has a lot of functions, but most specifically, and what's important to us in our discussion, is its reward potential. So how exactly are these neurotransmitters affected by alcohol? Well, alcohol acts similarly to GABA. It's inhibitory. It's depressing our systems and slowing us down. Whereas glutamate, on the other hand, is kind of inhibited when we're drinking alcohol. Glutamate's important when we talk about alcohol withdrawal. It's mostly responsible for the symptoms that you typically think of in withdrawal, which are tremors, anxiety, and seizures. And then dopamine is incredibly important in addiction. Like I said, dopamine is related to reward. And so when we drink alcohol, we get a big surge of dopamine signaling reward. And so when we become addicted to alcohol and other substances, we crave the dopamine. We just continuously want more and more dopamine. And so we just continue to drink alcohol or use a different substance. That's why treating addiction is so incredibly difficult, because nothing really gives the same reward of dopamine as does that substance. But that's a way that we could target potential treatments in the future. So tune in to us next week. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into dopamine and the other chemicals that play a big role in alcohol and substance use disorders.